Hi. Yeah, I'll never get used to this. This is why I don't. Well, there's one of many reasons, but this is why I'm not an actor. I don't do well in front of a camera at all. So I just spent the last 4-day evenings and the weekend putting together my classic space sets. Of this classic space. Get my head back in the side of my hobby. Classic Technic sets. These are the very first sets that were released. I think they started in 77. They went to 79 before they went to the 4-digit numbers. That's a little piece of trivia that's probably completely wrong. But these were the first 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. 8 sets. I just got it. I've always wanted to put them all together. And this is the first time I've ever done it. I mean, I got this set. My parents got me this set when I was 10 or 11, 1977, 1978. This was one of my first sets after the big melt, which is a whole other story. And this when they released Technic. So I've always loved this set. And I remember getting the brochure that came with it and the other Technic sets that were available, like the big car and the other ones. And I always wanted them, and I acquired many of them over the years. I didn't get all of them, nor I may have got them in bulk lots, but I never put them together. I put together the Supercar a long time ago, but I never bothered with the rest of them, even though I always thought I could. And so I decided to sit down during, self-isolation and build them. And I actually had a really good time. I started with this one, the 850 Forklift. I will say this is the weakest one out of all of them. It's not even, it's definitely a Technic set because it's got steering, really cool steering mechanism, backward steering like old forklifts. And the forklift goes up and down. And that's it. So I didn't mind it for my first set. I never had it when I was a kid. There's not a lot of Technic pieces that come with this. There's a lot of basic pieces, a lot of basic brick, and yellow. It was an interesting build. I remember wanting it when I was a kid, thought it was like a little more cool, but out of all these sets, this is the least cool. But it was fun to build, and I wanted to complete the set. So that's 850, and we'll not talk about it again. So this is the one I did want when I was a kid. I never got it because it reminded me of my Uncle George's tractor that I actually wanted to drive, and I actually got to drive as I got older. He had a Massey Ferguson, if I remember correctly, a red one. He also had a blue Ford that I did get to drive. But I grew up working on farms, and a lot of people had tractors that looked exactly like this. So it was actually odd that this Technic set brought back so many memories of working on a farm. And the mechanism for this guy is really cool. This parallel lever, parallel lift. I thought that was really cool how they designed it. Considering, whoops, that always breaks off. I wouldn't have done that, but hey, what do I know? Also has steering, and again, it has a universal in there to connect the steering wheel to the rack and pinion. So you can probably see this. Well, let me just actually hold it up. There's a little universal way inside there that you can see, and the rack and pinion, obviously, because there's the big rack there. The steering's a little flimsy, not very strong, but then tractors, it kind of, the front end of a tractor and the steering always looked a little bit weak to me, but they always seem to hold up. In the back wheel, only one of them actually drives the mechanism, and that has to be on the ground for it to work properly. But I put the mower on so you can see it cuts the grass. And then you lift it up and it doesn't cut the grass. Now this one showed you a variety of different attachments like plows and all stuff, but I think the mower is the coolest when it actually works. It also came with a variety of 40-tooth gears, 4 of them, which is kind of cool. So there's a lot more Technic in here and a lot more levers, which I thought was really cool. Levers doing something. Let's see, these things always get stuck in the gear. There we go. So you got the parallel bars on the back, which just causes that thing to go up and down, which is really, really cool, I thought. I don't know if you can, how you can see that. There it is. So you can see that. So the mechanism was cool for its age. I thought it was remarkably well done. I mean, a lot of basic brick too, a lot of plates. But in the end, some really good red Technic pieces, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that more than I thought I would. This was, I would have to say, my favorite build out of all of them. This is the 852. They called it the Reconnoiter Helicopter. If you watch MASH or something like that, it's a very, very stark-looking helicopter. Not a lot to it in the real life, but what I was really amazed with, considering I had the 8844 when I was older, and I bought it myself because I was right into Technic back in high school. I was amazed at the functionality of this helicopter. First of all, you turn this. I was hoping for a better gearing so the blades would go faster, but you know it does spin the tail rotor and the top blades, but the actual controls lift up that thing so it actually tilts the blades. Actually, what a real helicopter does. I said they did that, and I'm going, so you can actually turn this thing while the blades are tilting on their axis. And I said that's brilliant, and the mechanism is really kind of cool. Basically, all the controls do is lift up that little blue thing that causes the blades to tilt because the blades are on a swivel, so it doesn't come back down easily, but it just goes up and down like that, which is what a real helicopter does, to tilt the blades. So I was impressed by that, actually, and it actually does look cool. I remember seeing it in the brochure when I was a kid, thinking, and it comes with a lot of yellow Technic bricks. And other than that, the gearing's cute. It comes with a couple. I broke it. Just there's the one thing about my old friction peg or my non-friction pegs. Probably should have found some better ones. A lot of yellow Technic bricks, a lot of 1x16s. So and like I think 3 or 4 universals in here, which is one of my favorite pieces that Lego ever came out with in the Technic line, is a universal joint. Very, very cool. And so I had fun building that. And then just like the Galaxy Explorer on the classic space side, we get to the very first Lego Supercar that was coveted by most Technic fans back in the day. I don't think anybody talks about it anymore. I don't know. I don't follow Technic much as I used to. But this was a coveted set way back when. And it was most expensive, actually. You bought this or you bought a Galaxy Explorer. And if I remember walking into a store at the age of 10 or 11 when these things were on the shelf, they were both $53. Now, $53 is really chump change these days, but in 1978, 79, $50 was a lot of money. And so this was $50, and the Galaxy Explorer was $50, $53 in Canada. Vaguely recollect that. I could be 100% wrong, but I somehow remember that. This set has some really cool features. It's the first time I've ever seen a transmission in a Lego set. So this is the gear shift here, and it goes back and forth. Usually better when the car's moving. The seats are adjustable, so you can adjust the seats. That's kind of neat. Very good steering. Very first generation of steering. Exactly the same as the tractor. It uses the 2x2 turntables, 6 of them. But it does use, again, probably see it from the bottom better. It does use universals to get there. So you can see there's 2 universals that take it from the steering wheel to the rack and pinion underneath. This top gear does nothing. I guess they wanted just to add a little feature there. It could be like a fan for the radiator. Or you can just spin it to make the gears go up and down, or the pistons go up and down. But about the actual gear shift. So in the back, you can see they don't have a differential. They have a solid axle basically. Yes, there's a universal holding the two axles together because they don't have a 22 axle. They have a 12 and a 10. And so there's universal, and then they have a 40 tooth gear going to a crown gear, which then goes up here. I get a couple universals, takes it right to the transmission. I get my hand out of the way. Takes it to the transmission, which takes it to the actual motor, the 4-cylinder motor. So if you're actually driving this thing across your table, first of all, this is, you don't see the pistons going up and down at all right now. But if you put it in one gear, pistons go up and down a lot. If you just move it forward, and now this is going slower. The pistons are going slower. So this would be fast gear because the pistons go basically the same speed. And this is the slow gear. This gives you more torque. This gives you more speed. And then it's in neutral, which is kind of neat. So the first time they did that, right off the bat, the first year they brought out Technic, they had a transmission, they had pistons, they had universals, they had steering, rack and pinion steering. No suspension at all on this one. There's zero suspension. Like if you get, I can even get it out. I won't talk about this one. It's not worth talking about. It's a little dusty. But you get this guy. Oh. This is another supercar that I happen to have together. I got all the supercars until like 8448. And then I just gave up. But so here's a new, I think this is the third supercar, but it has full suspension. And it has also has a transmission, a 3-speed transmission. But we're not going to talk about this guy. But you can see the evolution from here to here. Basically, this became this after a couple of iterations. So I love this set. I've always loved this set. I always wanted this set. I actually have another copy coming to me from a friend in Ottawa. So it's just that she's in self-isolation too. She was going to come over for Easter. And this happened right before Easter, so I won it, and it was in Ottawa, so she said she'd go pick it up, and so she has it at her house right now, and I'll get it whenever I get it, but this is the one copy I decided to put together this week. This is the set where I realized, this is the last one I built out of all these, and I realized that I ran out of piston tops, the pistons themselves, so I actually had to go rip one off one of my go-karts in my box, so this one will be complete. So that's the 853. So that's the 853. The biggest one that came out, as I said, it was lots of money at the time. Let me get rid of that. And then we get to my favorite to this day. Even after building all these, this still is my favorite. It has all the same features as the big one. It has the same, basically the same steering as the tractor. Has a little more robust strength in the front steering. Has one piston in the back. This is also the vehicle I learned before I took auto shop as to why cars have differentials. Because when you get the set, you can see this really easily. So this tire goes to a 40 tooth, a 24 tooth, which goes to an 8, which goes to the piston. And I said, why don't they do another 8-tooth gear here and another 24-tooth gear there? So I took because this came with a crown gear and an extra 8-tooth gear. I put it in there, and when you're going straight, it's great. But as soon as you start turning, and actually it does this, you can see that the wheels turn at different speeds, the back tires, because of course you're going around in a circle. So this is covering less area, and this is covering more area. It's the diameter of the circle that they're taking. So that's what the differential does in a car. So if you put solid gears in here, one of these tires has to slip. The outside or the inside, they have to slip, and it binds. And it actually, I learned that when I was 10 or 11 years old. So when I took auto shop, I actually knew what a differential was, and I knew why you have a differential. Anyway, this is such a fun set. I will thus far think this is my favorite set. Yeah, I don't think I have to say much. I don't have to. Anyway, I don't have to talk about it anymore. Again, I should script these things. Not gonna happen. And then we get to a really interesting set. This one. This is the crane. I think it is 855. I guess 1 0 1 2 3 4 5. This is a really. Doing this wrong? No, that's not one. This one. Yes. So the crane goes up. This thing is already off. This is the one thing about the old Technic sets. They kind of just use the wheel hubs for pulleys, which is not conducive to getting the rope down. So pardon me while I get this thing worked out. But this does come down. It does have the stanchions that come out and down, which is kind of neat. Yes, you have to brick build them after they're out, but that's fine. So this thing, I mean, it's a pretty cool thing. I mean, you see that this wheel here, this crank here, goes to a crown gear to an 8, all the way up to a few universals to this guy. I wouldn't have designed it like this, because this crown gear is on the outside. I'm going to bring it closer so you can see. This crown gear is on the outside, so if any kind of pressure, it pops off like that. And then this thing starts slipping. But if you're not having any weight on it, it works perfectly fine. But it does extend, really, really cool. I mean, they built better crane trucks after this, obviously. But for the first time, again, I can't complain about this at all. The only thing I found is that the bottom is just basically brick. They didn't use hardly any Technic on it at all. It's all brick built. They could have made it kind of cool with maybe pistons or like some sort of, at least axles. They use the the non-friction to axle pin to hold the tires on. Like you see the tires. So there's absolutely nothing underneath. But again, I would imagine part count and all that stuff. What are you gonna do? Still a cool set. Glad I built it. I wanted it since I was a kid. I remembered it when I got to put it together, and I said that is actually a cool build. I was gonna raise it up again. I'm also very amazed because there's not a lot of reinforcing. Like most of the sets that we're used to has a lot of friction pegs, a lot of half stud beams that hold everything together. The only time you actually see that overall, as you can see this right here, they use the non-friction pegs, but they use the 1x4 bricks to hold these two together. I mean, that's my standard building, but I usually use friction pegs. But they didn't do that much at all in any of these builds, and yet the thing holds together. So kudos to Lego. They also use this piece, and I always forget the name of this piece, but it's a very, very ubiquitous piece back in the day. And they put an axle the whole apart. It's like a beam. It's and the fact that they don't come apart. I mean, this one's pushed in because this thing's pushing down, so it's holding the two pieces together. But there's a couple, especially in the helicopter, where it's pulling instead of pushing, and you would think that would just come apart, but they don't. So it's kind of neat how they got all that working. Very happy with that guy. So that was 844, 845, 846. This is now my second favorite set ever. Technic set next to this guy. I got the backhoe, wherever I went to. Oh, they're right there. The studless backhoe back in the day, and I thought that was a great set because it's got the pneumatics and all that stuff, but it also has the really neat bucket dumper and all that stuff, the front arm going up. I'm amazed that they did that without pneumatics, and I'm amazed they did that with just rack and pinion. I'm amazed they did that with just gears. So this thing, if I remember correctly, pushes up, so you get the double do it. But the linkages here is what I'm talking about. That is some really cool physics going on there. The linkages to get that shovel to dump. Now you look at a real bulldozer, a real steam shovel. They basically have the same thing, probably not as many linkages, and they just use one pneumatic pipe, but it's also cantilevered somewhere like that. But this one, and this is what I'm talking about. So when you're doing this, you can see right here, you got this wonderful little piece and this wonderful piece with a 6L axle in between. And when you're pulling it back, right, you're pulling this piece back, and so this piece has to come along, and yet this axle's not slipping out of here. like I know there's not a lot of weight to it, but that in my estimation, that never works in any of my builds because usually you have to reinforce it with a half stud beam along there just to hold it together, or just use a beam. to hold it together. But they did all this with axles, and they did all this. I mean, that's just amazing. Now, again, the actual 40-tooth gears are held on by that peg with the axle in it, so there's nothing underneath when it comes to the tracks. It's not going anywhere. It would have been cool to have it go somewhere, do something. Again, pistons inside, but you look at it, it's pretty compact, considering it's got like all these gear trains, all these rack and pinions, all these gear downs, and all these gear ups in here. So they did all this, and they still had room for a cab. So I think that's just astounding. And you look at that and you say, they built all this using rack and pinion, and they did all this. They still had room for a cab. So pretty compressed. And just building it was a joy. Watching it work is a joy, because as first time I built it, and I said, how did they actually do all this? Instead of just making it easy, just raises it and pushes it. Like they could have cheaped out on this thing so much, and they didn't. Like I'm looking at all those linkages that push this thing around. Astounding, absolutely astounding. So very, very impressed with this set. Wish I had it when I was a kid, although I probably would have ended up in the sandbox and you wouldn't see it now. So that was the 854, 855, 856. And then we get into a very hit and miss. The motorcycle with side cab. The motorcycle itself had some really interesting points to it. Growing up, my dad had pictures of him on his Harley Davidson. It was white and chrome, white leather, saddlebags and all that stuff. And so I remember just looking at this profile when I was a kid, except it was white and chrome and, as they say, leather saddlebags and all that stuff. So this sort of looks like it. Even the seat, I think. I don't think he had the huge seat with the second rider. I can't remember. I mean, I was a kid, but I remember those pictures. The starter is just an elastic holding that thing, pulling it up and down, just fine. One piston, which you can't see when it's driving, is the first one that came with chain. Like the tractor came with treads. This is the first one that came with chain. Because the back wheel, you can hear the piston, and if you look underneath, you can see the piston go up and down, but you can't see it. So when you're driving, you can't see it. You can hear it, and again, it's not geared up, so the piston basically turns almost basically every revolution that the tire does. So it goes pretty slow. I want to hear it ding, 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 like a Harley. So, but I'm amazed with the angles that they got out of the Technic bricks by putting them in the specific holes. So you got this angle here, you got this angle here, you got this angle here is up. It's not parallel to this guy. This guy's straight up and down. So, and then this front, when I was building it, this front fork, I'm going, what are they doing? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I do think this is cheating on the geometry though, because if you got this piece here with the peg in it, and you got this piece one stud back up here. This was a tight fit. It wasn't a perfect fit because it would have to go into that. Well, if I can't see it, I would have to go. I can't. Let's take the handlebars off. It would have to go in that center hole to make it perfectly aligned with this hole, and then put it one hole back. So there's a bit of a tension there, I find, which is fine. Again, and the front forks do stick out more now. And it works in the end. I was impressed. I didn't think it was gonna this was gonna impress me, but and even putting the 1x4 or the 2x4 Technic plate with holes, and flipped it over and put a peg in the middle there to keep the two pieces together. I don't see if you can see that. That's kind of dark. Yeah, right there. You can see the Technic pin that holds the one plate on top of the other plate upside down, so you don't have to worry about studs holding this guy on. Let's see if you can see this. Take this off. So this is, I'll get zoom in, get real closely. So you got this Technic plate. You got this Technic plate upside down. I'll get a better pointer than that. I'll use a brick. So you got this Technic plate here, and you got this Technic plate, which is upside down. So they're just sandwiched together with that Technic pin. And then you got this Technic plate on top of that, so it can slide around like that, right on top. So it's Technic plate on top of Technic plate, because one's upside down, so you don't have to worry about studs, you don't have to worry about tiles, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So that saves you space, absolutely. Where was that? Oh, that was a tractor. I forgot to show you something else. Might go back to it. So the headlight's kind of cute. It's got trans yellow. The tail light's kind of cute, the red. The tail oh, for crying out loud. Fender. Second thing that goes is the memory. The fender's really cute. What I didn't like at all is the sidecar. The sidecar completely takes away from the set. Like this, the 854 had an alternate build of a little motorcycle. This is that motorcycle bigger. Like you look at this and you can see the other motorcycle that came with the 854. They could build the 854 out of the go-kart, which I have built, and I loved it. This is cool by itself. And then you put this on the side, and it's like, oops, the seat came off. This is really chintzy now. This distracts from the set. It really does. And there's nothing to it. It's all brick built. There's the tire sitting on the end. I was actually very disappointed by this. And if I'm going to keep this set together, and I'm probably going to keep this set together, and I might make it white. I might try to model after my dad's bike. This is going. I remember all the movies, even Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Not the Temple of Doom, The Last Crusade with Sean Connery. But even Hogan's Heroes and all those shows always had the motorcycle with the sidecar. Like they all did. But I'm looking at this, and this 100% detracts from the beautiful Technic build. Like this is a fantastic Technic build. This is not on. I don't know if they just wanted to parts count more. This would have been a good, or just because this looked too much like the 854 motorcycle, which is like half the size. I don't know, because this is beautiful. This is chintzy, but that's just my opinion. Overall impressive with the gearing, with the chains. I would have made the gearing a little better, faster, so the piston, you could hear it go up and down more. I don't know how you would see it. That's the one thing that, because the go-kart you can see, the car you can see the piston go up and down. This thing you can't see it at all. You cannot see it. The gas tank was a fun build. The seat was interesting. The fenders were really nice to build. Besides the bike itself is beautiful. Very impressed with the bike. This is one thing I forgot to point out in the tractor. You can see back here, there's a backup, or I remember this from Uncle George's too. He had a little round light in the back in the fender. We used to sit up in the fenders. You can't do it anymore. But Uncle George would be here driving the tractor up and down the rows of grapes and on the rows of pears. And I would be sitting right here watching him. I was like 8 or 9. And we would have to stop, and then I would jump off, and I would go pick up the bushel of pears and then put it on the trailer that he's carrying, and he'd take it back to the barn for sorting. And I loved it. Like just sitting, and you think about this. I'm 8 years old, and Uncle George would let me, and he was very safe and cautious. But you think that these tires are big. like I was not as tall as this tire back in the day, and I'd be sitting up here. But anyway, sorry, that's a whole other tangent. This is an illegal build technique that they've done in a few sets, where you put the plate between the two studs. They did it actually in the Apollo, the Saturn V, with the flag. They used to do it all the time back in the 70s and 60s, and then it became an illegal build. Like you cannot put a plate between the two studs. I've done it my entire life. I put let's see if I can not. It's really, really quick. I hate to go off on a tangent right now, but that's my whole life. My police car. I remember doing this when I was a kid, and I looked at the instructions, and they're flat, like that. And going, why do I remember doing this then? Because I did this all the time back in the early 70s with my cars for sirens. And on the tractor, and I'm going, whatever. That's just a tangent. So all in all, I had a good time for 4 days, 4 evenings of my life. I built these three. No, this one. I built these 3 on Saturday. I built those 3 on Sunday. this one, this one, this one. I did this one today. Just finished it up. So I was trying to do it like an Iron Man thing, where I could just keep on building as long as I could keep on building, and then go to bed. Probably not the best thing to do because I'm exhausted. But I had fun doing it. It reminded me of my youth. Like, I played Technic a lot. Technic and Classic Space got me through my teenage years and into my 20s, because the Classic Space kind of, I didn't fizzle out. I always loved Classic Space the most. But I had Technic first. I had this set before I had any space set. This one here. I went basic brick sets, the old fire stations and all that stuff, to that, and I was just mind blown. And then 2 years later, I got my first 918 space set, and then that got me through high school making Lego Wars with Jake and Pete and everybody. But I also at the same time got my Commodore 64, and I built the interface to build robots, because I remember seeing this is before Lego TC logo, which I won't pull down because it'll just make a mess. I was building an interface card for my Commodore 64 because I had the 4.5 volt motors because of these sets, some of these sets, and I picked up the motor accessory kit, and I was building an interface with my Commodore 64. So I was making robots. Like, Commodore 64 was controlling motors. They weren't walking robots like conveyor belts and whatever. I was doing that in the late 70s, well, not late 70s, 82, I think I got my 64, so 83. So halfway, well, it started high school, grade 10. So I was doing that, and that was Technic, and that got me through high school along with Lego Wars and the Classic Space. And then when I was in college, I moved in with my friends in the house. The space layout was on my ping pong table at the house that we were renting, but Technic was always there too. And so Technic and Classic Space got me all the way through my 20s and 30s. And I'm still doing the same thing today. Like, I got into trains a little bit. I dabbled in trains just because I met RTL Toronto and they were doing train shows. But this is my first love, like, as a sub-theme of Lego, and Classic Space is my second. And I, as you know, with my space layout now, I'm combining both again. I have my scissor lift, I have my repair bays, I have all that, my robot gantries. Like, I like bringing Technic into Classic Space. But this was a good walk down memory lane. I was very happy with it. I was happy I did it. I'm going to probably keep these together. I'm going to put them in a box. And at the shows, whenever we get to do shows again, I'm going to set these up with all my 18 854s. And hopefully that'll be a nice display for people. I don't think I'm going to continue on with the 4-digit sets. As I said, I got the other Supercar. I'm not going to put all the Supercars back together. I don't have the room to keep them all together. I may put the 8880 together again, because that is possibly the best one they ever put out. Because that's so wonderful. But, so another thing, really quick, before I sign off. I've run out of blue 1x16 Technic bricks. I'm officially out. I actually have none. They're all built into something now. I have tons. I had tons. Some are in the layout. Some are here now. And I had to substitute, on the motorcycle. And I called for two 1x16s on the bottom. So there's a 1x12 and a 1x4. Here at the back. So, because I ran out of 1x16s. So I was shocked actually by that. But in the end, doesn't matter. It's together and I'm happy. I was happy to do the substitution. There was another substitution I did too, and I can't remember it now. I won't remember it now. It doesn't matter. I did post about it. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. I think we're well over time. And I want you guys to stay safe, stay healthy. And I'll keep on trying to post videos to keep you mildly entertained by what I'm doing here. So you guys take care.